Hello and welcome to Make It Happen. Today's episode is all about money, and I have brought one of my dear friends, Dr. Monikah Ogando, who is going to be live in the studio talking about how to overcome some of your money mindset questions that are holding you up to accomplish what you want in your business and in your paychecks. Today's episode is a sure not to miss. I'm also excited to partner with some amazing brands that are helping to make this show possible. But today's show is being brought to you by the Marketing Blueprint Workshop. Every year, I put together an event in the fall that helps business owners create their marketing plan. We spend some time talking about marketing trends and the things that have shifted in the market, but then we also dive deep into creating your plan for the new year. Everything from deciding your messages, the mediums that you're going to use, the budget that's important, and all about social media and media to put together a cohesive approach to your marketing. You're welcome to join us at any time of year. So if you're listening to this in May, we have recordings available for you. But if you'd like to join us live, go to marketingblueprintworkshop.com. You'll see tickets available and all of the details that you need. We hope that you can join us. It's one of my favorite things that I do each year. Hello and welcome to a very special interview with one of my friends, Dr. Monikah Ogando. And what you need to know about her is that not only is she a brilliant brain that does this beautiful intersection of business and spirituality, but she is going to be talking to us today about how to have a higher conversation about money. But her list of accolades precede her. So I need you to go look her up, because not only am I grateful to call her a friend, but I often ask myself the question, what would Monikah do right now? And she grounds me and keeps me calm, cool, and collected, because nothing really ruffles her feathers. I mean, I've seen her ruffle just a little bit, like behind the scenes about grits, but not about business. So
that was a private conversation.
I know, that was private, not for today. Okay, but I'm intrigued by this conversation. You and I have had very deep convos, which I love and miss, by the way. We were in a mastermind with Amy Walker, and we got to travel to Louisiana together, and also went to...
Stuffed our face with beignets.
Yes, I don't regret that one bit.
Not at all.
And ate grits. You taught me about grits,
Yes.
to be truthful.
Yes.
Okay, but... today we're going to talk about money, and I'm so excited because we talked about a couple different conversations, and I was like,
second favorite M word besides Monikah is money.
That's great. But I think we have these misconceptions about what money is.
Yes.
And so what would you say are some of those misconceptions that keep us stuck in the wrong frame of mind about money?
Well, I mean, anybody that was born in the last 100 years would be under the impression that money is a benchmark of success. And it's just really a metric of progress.
Sure.
And so for me, when you talked about mixing spirituality and blending spirituality with business, for me, it's like business is a vehicle to live out your purpose and to create the legacy that you would be proud of, sure. Right? And so the money conversation, one of the misconceptions that we have, particularly in the entrepreneurial world, is that a lot of the money conversations are about how to make it. So you want to get the pricing right, and you want to make sure that you scale your programs and so forth so that you can make more. And that's great.
Sure.
But as a formerly enrolled IRS agent, I can tell you, you want to keep more. And then the making, it's like you can work with that. Sure. And so I have 3 M's for that, right? So M, mm-hmm. Right? So you want to make more money, yes, that's true, but you want to maintain that money, which is the keeping it part, and then you also want to multiply it, right? And so when you can take those 3 kind of phases of your own money journey, then you can rest easy, because a lot of times the reason why you're in this hamster wheel of making more money is because you haven't learned how to leverage it. Mm-hmm. And so you think, let me just go back to that hustle.
Sure.
And eventually you burn out on that.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have felt that burnout before in different businesses, but I've also felt that burnout within this business sometimes when I'm focused in the wrong places and I start to scramble. So something happens, there's a hiccup, and I'm like, oh no, I got to make more money. Yeah. And I'm making decisions from desperation rather than from purpose. Right. And that is tricky. Yeah. So what are some of your thoughts? Like I know I can talk myself there, mm-hmm. but I'm sure you have some ideas that will help us elevate to get to that better level.
Right. So one of the things that I talk about, if on my website, I have a book called Your Business is Sacred, and it's free. You can go get it right now. But one of the things that I talk about is that if you're 0 to 7 programming, right? So most of our personality and most of our unconscious beliefs were developed when we were sponges,
Sure.
eating everything up from the time that you were born to the time that you're 7 years old. And a lot of the money beliefs and conversations that we have are just things that we picked up along the way that we heard. That money doesn't grow on trees. Actually, yes, it does. It's made out of paper, but that's another sermon for another Sunday. And so, when you can examine your money conversations, then you can say, okay, well, does this still ring true? Because imagine if you were going on a trip to Miami, let's say from here, from Utah. If you were going on a trip to Miami and you get lost along the way, the first thing that somebody's going to ask you is, okay, well, where are you now?
Right.
So what I do when I work with my clients is I take an assessment. How much money have you made in the last 90 days? How much money have you made in the last year? And the reason why we do a year is because you want to see if your business is cyclical, then you want to see when does it go up? When does it go down? When do you experience a famine? When do you experience a feast? Why do you have to keep launching, etc., right? Mm-hmm. And then you want to think about, well, how does that work for your life? Because if you're a mom and your busiest months in business are August and September, when you have to be present for children going back to school, you have to automate this or automate your children. And good luck with that, right?
Right.
So you want to get clear about how much you're making and then how you can leverage that, right? And so then you want to think about, am I set up correctly as a business? It may or may not work to be an LLC for you. It may or may not work to be an S corporation. It may or may not work to be incorporated in Utah versus a state that doesn't charge income taxes at the corporate level. Mm-hmm. Which is why so many people recommend being incorporated in like Nevada or Delaware, New Mexico, Florida, which are the 4 states. And then you want to think about, do I need to be self-funded? Mm. Because if you're starting a new venture or if you're pivoting your business, maybe you can leverage a line of credit. Maybe you can leverage the mortgage on your house. Maybe you can leverage a friends and family round of private placement, investors, right? And so that you don't have to work necessarily with just what you can produce.
Sure.
That's another way to leverage it. And then if you're working from home, which a lot of people have started to do with COVID, or not that it wasn't new, it's just more popular now.
Sure.
And so now you want to think about, okay, well, if my house is, let's say, 5,000 square feet and my office is 1,000 feet, can I charge 20% of my mortgage to the business because it's taken up 20% of the house?
Right.
So you want to think about all these things so that you can start thinking about your business as a vehicle to make your life work and to make your legacy a thing that you can create faster rather than this, Tasmanian devil that's just always hungry and you have to keep feeding it with your own labor. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
But I also think we have this Tasmanian devil in our brains that says, you can't do that, or that's dumb, or you're not big enough for that, or you're not smart enough and you're not doing these things. So what ideas do you have for somebody who is trying to get the mind work in place for what they should charge or what their value is or how to be less scarcity mindset? How do we tame what's happening in our brains?
I have 3 strategies.
I'm ready.
The first one is all of those questions, put how on top of it.
Okay.
So if it says, I can't do that, okay, how can I do that? Right? That's too expensive. How can people afford it? Right? So you just change it into a house. It's like, given that you had the thought, given that you can think up a problem,
sure,
clearly a solution exists for that as well.
Amen.
Right? Because
I mean,
if we only had one pizzeria in New York, we would have a lot of angry New Yorkers. Right? So it's like, oh, I can't do that. Everybody's done it before. Well, but there's like a gazillion pizzerias too, and
sure,
everybody's done that. So that's the first strategy, is put a how on top of it. Then anytime that you want to say a negative thing about yourself with the I, put God in it and see if it still makes sense. So I can't afford it. God can't afford it. I don't have the time. God doesn't have the time. And eventually what's going to happen is you're going to laugh yourself out of your own absurdity. You're like, okay, now I'm being ridiculous. I have shifted from my absurdity, sure, right? And then the third thing is go get more data. Maybe it is true that you can't hack it. Maybe it is true that you're stupid. Maybe it is true that you don't deserve this much money. Maybe it is true. But how would you know?
Right.
Unless you go out there and get the data and it's like, oh, I did make that money. And now can you be wrong? about your limitations? Like, can you allow yourself to be wrong? Because you were wrong about your wrongness.
Right.
So can you be wrong about your limitations, you know?
But I like that. I think that allows people to have some tools to shift what's happening, because I think so much of business is taming what's happening in your brain. Like, we even joked before we started about all the things that were happening in my head as we got ready to record. And I think that we can talk ourselves out of anything. But the reality is we could probably talk ourselves into anything if we were using the right frame of mind, if we were focusing on the right things. And all of those thoughts that are saying, okay, I can't do this, or this isn't going to work, or it's terrible, don't give me any opportunities for creativity or ideas. But if I'm like, how could I do this? Or what can I mean, like this morning I was like, okay, what do I let go of? Right. And that, like, if you can say that from a space of, that's okay, what do I let go of? And just say, it's all right, some things have to just go, then we're not getting caught up and railroading into something that doesn't work. So the brain can help you. Yes.
And I want to address something that you said about that imposter syndrome.
Sure.
And that is that Todd Herman wrote a book called The Alter Ego, or something like that. And it's talking about how, like, you know, Clark Kent used this alter ego called Superman to be like his strongest self and his best self and this and that. And as soon as I saw that premise, I was like, dyslexic, it's actually the other way around. Superman is who he authentically was. Clark Kent is the alter ego, so that he can live among the mortals, because who he was this extraordinary hero. Right. And if we can think that we ourselves are this extraordinary hero that then just has to don ordinary clothes to be among the mortals. It's like Beyonce, right? It's like Beyonce, when she gets on stage, you know, I'm going to say stuff about the Honorable Elijah Beyonce.
Please do.
And so when she gets on stage, oh, you know, Sasha Fierce and this and that, and she just gets wild, and it's like she's in her element. It's what she was born to do. She's been doing it since she was 9 years old. And then she goes home and she's a wife and a mother of 3 children, et cetera, et cetera. Not to say that that's any less accurate about who she is and authentic about who she is, but there's this creative force that's inside of her that comes out when she's on stage, and comes out in her music, comes out in all of her other creative endeavors. And so if you can think of yourself in that way, that you're this creative force, that then at some point you're just going to have to put on Clark Kent regular clothes so that you can walk among the mortals, then it'll be easier to be able to say, okay, let it rip, as opposed to, oh, let me just walk my courage up to be extraordinary, as though you have to convince yourself of that. You don't. You just have to unleash it.
I like that. This is very juicy.
Juicy.
I like it when it's juicy. Okay. What else haven't we talked about money that this audience needs to hear?
So, for example, the whole difference between a Toyota Camry and a Rolls Royce, we've had this conversation before.
I love it. They need this.
You never see Rolls Royce being advertised on TV, because the people who buy Rolls Royce don't watch TV.
Right?
It wouldn't be there. And so in the same way, for you, in terms of your business, you want to make sure that you're in front of the people who would buy your stuff. If you have a bespoke boutique business, don't be doing flash dances online. Flash dances?
Flash mobs.
Flash sales is what I meant to say.
Oh, that's what you meant to say. I was like, oh, we're not doing dances either?
It's my inner, see, my creative force is coming out, right? So you want to be clear about what is it that I'm offering and who am I offering it for? And then stand there, right? When you hear someone, a Rolls-Royce car salesman isn't apologizing for how powerful that machine is and how much it costs. You want it. So I'm happy to give it to you if we can come to an understanding and a meeting of the minds, right? And it's the same thing with our sales. It's the same thing with how we manage money in our companies. It's like, when you're clear about the benefit and the value that you offer, the price is a favor. The price is how I'm being of service, because this is so amazing. But you have to know that. You have to be convinced of that.
Yeah, I have since learned in the last decade that the ones who want a discount or want to negotiate with me are not the right clients for me, because that's not that one conversation tells me how they're going to act about other things in the future.
Yes.
And the ones who show up and are like, oh yeah, you're worth every penny, and here I have no problem signing on the dotted line, those are the ones that I say I'm excited to work with them, because they understand my value. I'm not trying to prove my value every step of the way or every time I'm trying to take a check. And I love that. And so now I'm at a place where I can just say, I don't think this is a fit. And that feels really good.
It does, yes. And it even works with friends. It creates more intimacy and connection with friends. Because I always say, Amy laughs at me because I say, friends don't take food off the table. And that's what you're doing when you're asking for a hookup.
Right.
You're asking me to take food off my children's table.
Totally.
And why would you do that if you're my friend, right? It's like, no, I'm going to pay you full price, and then I'm going to have my dollars bring other dollar friends. So I'm going to refer you, and I'm going to speak your praises and so forth. So we have to be really respectful of our gift and how we offer it.
Well, I love that. We're going to link the book that you just talked about, Business is Sacred, in the show notes. But what else do you want this audience to know about you, and how can they find you? What's your next big thing?
I love my signature program called Women, Wealth, and Worthiness, because a lot of the conversation around the identity and the guilt thing and the mindset stuff, etc., a lot of it is gendered, a lot of it is cultural and social. And when you can start to peel back those layers, then you're like, oh, well, then let me just make this money and multiply it and magnify it, right? And so womenwealthandworthiness.com is where that wait list is, because it's not open for enrollment right now, but it will be soon. And it's just my favorite thing to teach.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here too.
Don't you just want to have Monikah answer all of your money questions? I want her to tell me all of her goodness all the time, and I know this was just a start. You can find all the details about Monikah and how to get more from her in the show notes. You can also find additional details. We reference some books and other things will be really helpful to you as you continue this money conversation. As you grow in your business, you might continue to hit money blocks, which is totally normal, but use some of these tips and strategies to help you thrive and living your make it happen life.